I'm going to go over the head and arm variations I've been doing. Just a couple different grips that I've been working on from your classic grips, right? When I'm going for my head and arm, a lot of the time, right, the number one thing we're going to have to do is get like these elbows out from, being inside of our legs, especially if she's doing a good job of protecting. So what I like to do a lot of the time is I want to get like good control of her head here. And I just like to keep her head lifted off the mat. So I'm almost like pulling her forehead and like head into my chest. So if she starts like bucking around, like I'm controlling her head and she can never really make that connection to the mat. So then what I want to do when I want to start attacking this head and arm choke is I take my hand and like I find like the wrist or like anything. I can find her fingers, I can find the wrist, but I find the space where I can get my fingers into, especially if she's inside of my thigh. If I try to just like get in on her elbow, it's super hard, right? So if I trace her arm down and then I punch like to the mat, I can start opening that elbow. Once I'm here, I'll get my fingers underneath it, and it doesn't matter if she keeps her arm on the inside like there, I can still start working this hand up. Okay, I'm just gonna have to watch out for her trying to bury that underhook. So I'll just keep driving my like arm and elbow down, right? Working that hand up, working that hand up, right? So now, once it gets in front of my face, even if it's still in front of my chest, it doesn't really matter, as long as I can start cutting it across, right? See the way I do that? I bring my hand and like bring it across to the other side of her head. Now I can get my head involved and I can work to start getting her arm into the place that I need. Okay, the further down by her neck it is, the better, but I don't necessarily always need it down by her neck. We'll talk about a couple grips I can use to finish if it's up higher, or if she's defending, answering the phone, earmuff, whatever. But for now, we'll talk about if we get it down into a good position, right, we can start to work towards like our normal-ish finish. It's still gonna be different than your classic choke, okay? So what I wanna do here is, see how I push her shoulder up? I'm going to push her shoulder up and just kind of push her slightly. And what I'll do is I'll kind of post my leg on the mat and I'll slightly splay out my right knee so I have good base. If I just keep my knee in and I push like this, I'm going to be off balance. So I just open my knee slightly and I keep my foot out on the mat. Here, as I get this choke into place, what I want to do is just drive this hand as deep as I can. So I kind of like lift it up and down. Basically what I'm trying to do is close off all the space between her neck and the crease of my arm. Okay, now once we're here, what I've been doing is as I come down, I bring this arm in. I don't want to bring it under her shoulder, but I want to bring it like palm up, and then I put my wrists together here. Right, I don't want to get under her shoulder because I don't want to stop her shoulder from hitting the mat, but I just want to get to like this wrist up position where I can drop down into the mat here. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to curl this wrist up as I punch this wrist like towards the mat, and it like lifts up. As I do that, I'm also going to turn my thumb up. When I turn my thumb, it really engages my bicep. Right? So when I'm here and I turn my thumb up, I can drop my chest in and squeeze super heavy, getting my finish. And this way I don't have to dismount from the choke. Right? So when I'm here, trace the arm down, walk, 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 right? Get the arm across. As soon as we get here, like we can use our chin and everything to bury that arm. If we have to try and use our hand, we can. We just want to keep a wedge between her arm and being able to escape, right? Sometimes it's a battle to get this arm into the position we need to, but as long as we start closing off that space, we're pretty good. Lift that person up, post out on my foot, right? Get this deep and driven through. I'm gonna put my arm, like wrist up or palm up, right? Wrist over wrist, I'm curling up, and then I'm turning my thumb. You'll feel your bicep engage when you turn your thumb. If you just squeeze here, right, you'll probably still get a finish, but when I curl my thumb up and I drive through, it gets really, really tight. We're gonna do all the same stuff. We're gonna get to our nice choking position, right? We get to this, there's wrist and wrist, and like her arm isn't very far across her neck or something like that. And like I'm just having a hard time getting a nice squeeze finish. I'm going to take my leg here. I'm going to bring it over the top, right? And then from there, I'm going to open this knee, and then I'm going to slide my knee to her hip. Once I find her hip, I trace her hip to the mat, and then as my knee touches the mat, I'm going to punch like my knee under her hip, right? That's going to put her body at a slight angle, which puts her deeper into the choke. Okay, so when I open this, I'm pushing her body away, pushing her into the choke, and now I can go right into that same grip, bearing my head, turning my wrists up, and then I'll drop this. You good? Okay. I'll drop this hip as I sink through that choke. So now we're going to go over if we work the arm up, right, and Sarah starts doing like answering the phone, right, she's giving us some problems, okay? We can always just remove this by putting our neck into place, like controlling her tricep and elbow, using our other hand to push it across her face. Okay, but like then maybe we start to go for a choke and we get our hands in place and she gets back to that position. We don't want to let go of our choke, but we still want to finish our choke. Okay, so what I've been doing is I'll switch here. I'm going to drive this deeper into like a rear naked choke grip. And from the top, I might be able to finish. I might have to dismount. I might be able to finish from here. But our choking mechanics is going to be a little bit different. Okay? What I'm going to do here is when I get to the rear naked choke, instead of thinking about dropping through her neck, because I can't really drive through her tricep and everything into her throat, I'm going to squeeze like by pulling my right elbow back to my body. So I'm going to start pulling this elbow back to me. Right, creating like a cut choke, right? Instead, like when we're doing our regular head and arm, we're like dropping through that choke. This one, because our arm's in place, I'm pulling this elbow back to my body and I'm cutting off the space this way. It's definitely a different mechanic. So she's doing a really good job here, right? I moved it, she put it back. So instead of trying to fight that off, right? And if I can't get the choke here, I'll dismount, right? And now, when I go for the finish, I'll do the same thing where I put my knee against the hip, but instead I'm going to drive my chest through more like this as I pull my elbow back. So I'm using like opposing forces here, right? Getting a really tight choke. If you notice, this one gets me a very quick tap most of the time because it's super tight. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about with the other chokes, or even this one. A lot of people need instant gratification with chokes, especially with head and arms. So I'll see them go to a head and arm choke, hold it for 2 seconds so that person doesn't tap, they'll almost like let go of the whole choke, right? Like when I'm here, I don't want to burn my arms out, right? So it's super important not to burn my arms out. But when I get to a nice tight position, if they're not tapping, I'll just kind of keep that same pressure and I'll wait like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, right? And then maybe I get a tap, okay? If after like 15 seconds I don't get a tap, that's when maybe I'll make like a readjustment, okay? But I'm not going to make that readjustment after 3-4 seconds because I've been teaching this so many times and I watch somebody I literally watch somebody in the choke and they get to the squeezing position and then their partner starts raising their hand like they're about to tap. You moved like you were going out or something?
No.
Okay.
I was trying to defend, but you
It's hard to tell. Yeah, no, you're good. So their partner like looks like they're about to tap, and then I watch them go to readjust because I can't see that tap on their shoulder, right? Sometimes it's just about holding that choke for a little bit longer until you get the tap, right? Because sometimes it's a little bit of a slow burn. Like we're choking off 80% of the blood, but not 100%, right? But eventually that 80% is going to win. Does that make sense? All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3.